All right, welcome to the Ohio Valley Sports Blog video podcast. I'm BJ.
I'm Cody.
I'm Ian.
All right, let's start out. Let's talk some Ohio State basketball. Big game against Michigan tonight. Ian, what's your keys for this game?
I think the keys are that Ohio State has got to come out hot. They really took it to Iowa in their last game. Were really able to control the last major game.
They played Purdue.
They played Purdue,
but Purdue's having a horrible year.
The last big game that they played, they went into Carver Hawkeye Arena and really took it to Iowa. Never let Iowa get established, and then I think they got to do the same thing with Michigan because that Iowa team that they really blasted Michigan just a couple of nights ago. So I think if Ohio State can establish their dominance early, establish their pace, establish their kind of game early on, I think it'll take Michigan out of the style that they want to play.
I think it's going to be an interesting matchup to watch, Aaron Craft and Nick Stauskas. I mean, Stauskas definitely has the size advantage, so it'll be interesting to see if Craft can contain him because, really, I mean, except the stretch where Stauskas was just scoring 20 points a night, I mean, it's him and Glenn Robinson the third. I mean, that's the entire Michigan offense. You don't have Trey Burke this year. You don't have all those scores you had. So they need to contain the couple scores they do have. I think this is going to be a really tight, defensive-minded game. I just hope that Ohio State can make the shots when they need to.
Right, and I think you hit on a key point there, BJ. Michigan has Glenn Robinson III and Stauskas. Ohio State has Lensell Smith and Shannon Scott. I mean, Kraft did have a really good game against Iowa. I mean, I think may miss one or two field goals.
I was gonna say that's probably his best game.
But generally, those are going to be your two main scorers.
And occasionally, LaQuinton Ross will jump into the scoring too.
Right, but those two guys are going to be key. So it's really which two main guys for each team are going to get going and who can shut them down because Ohio State at times can be offensively challenged. They have the potential, but they don't. I mean, they either just bad shooting, turn, or something always seems. So I think the key is going to be whoever can get their offense going, and probably first to 50 wins in the Big Ten game.
This is an Ohio State team, like you said, they're offensively challenged, but they have so much experience starting mostly seniors and juniors, and they're so good defensively. But you're right, they have to be okay offensively.
Right.
They can't come out there. They can't come out there like they did during that 5 of 6 losing stretch where they scored like 52 points. They can't do that. This is a good Michigan team, but these are teams going in the opposite directions. Michigan's lost the last couple games. Ohio State's on a 3-game winning streak. So you really hope that continues tonight. And we'll be live reporting from the arena.
We'll be at the shot tonight. I'll just throw one last thing out there before we move on. I remember during in the days leading up to the Ohio State-Ohio University game, Ohio point guard Stevie Taylor had been pretty in close contact with Trey Burke at getting pointers on how to beat Aaron Craft. So I'm pretty sure that Nick Stauskas has probably been doing the same with how to beat Aaron Craft.
I don't know.
I mean, Stevie did go for 20 points that night, so...
Let's move on across the river. Let's talk about WVU. Just a monumental win last night. I mean, 102-77, beating a ranked Iowa State team. I mean, that's the best game the Mountaineers have played all year. And we were gonna ask this question last week, but we decided to hold off for a week. And they got a couple quality wins in between our two podcasts. Cody, is this a tournament team now?
I think they're on the border. If they're not a tournament team, I think they're like a number 1 NIT seed right now. I mean, they're playing in the best conference this year, I think, in terms of basketball in the Big 12, which I didn't expect it to be, but it really is this year. They beat Oklahoma. They beat Iowa State. I mean, the Kansas game wasn't a complete blowout. They were never really in it, but it was kind of there. And they still have Baylor, Texas, I believe Oklahoma, Iowa State again. So if they can get to 18 wins and then maybe win 1 or 2 games in the tournament, in the Big 12 tournament, I think they're a tournament team based on how tough the conference is this year.
Yeah, I would agree with you. About 18 to 20 wins will be about the benchmark in a really tough conference. But I mean, this is a team. I mean, except last night. I mean, they've been an okay team, like beating the bad teams, then losing against good teams. But it's all about the attitude this year. Bob Huggins had a horrible team last year. Just from from the attitude all the way to the play. I mean, you have players that were upset when the team won, but they didn't score 20 points. So he's really gotten his type of players in there this year. People who want to play hard, people who want to be there for the team. So, I mean, even if they're not a tournament team, which they could be, I'm not saying they are at this point, but they have the potential to be. I mean, they're moving in the right direction as a program, and you have to be excited about that if you're a WVU fan.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you too. I have them as a bubble team right now. I don't know. I mean,
10 losses.
10 losses is hard to overlook, but the quality of those 10 losses hasn't been terrible when you lose to teams like Kansas and your Baylors and teams like that are really doing well in a tough conference. That win last night over Iowa State was huge. Beating Oklahoma was huge. I hope that they continue in the right direction. You know, I want them to continue in the right direction. Let's not forget that they closed the season with Kansas this year.
Yeah,
so
it's gonna be a tough
that'll
one.
be a tough one, but I expect them to win a couple more of these games down the stretch. You know, I really do. And I expect them to win a couple of games in the Big 12 tournament. And I hope that they do because I want to see them in the tournament because this is a very good basketball team to watch. They're fun to watch right now. They're entertaining. They have a good mentality about them. And I think they could really make some noise if they got in.
All right, let's move back over to Ohio. The OU Bobcats. I mean, they've been just plugging through the MAC this year. I mean, they've been one of the better teams in that conference. They have a big rematch against Toledo coming up. They beat Toledo. They came back and beat them in overtime their last matchup. Ian, you expect the Bobcats to prevail again?
I'm hoping that they prevail again tomorrow night. It's a huge game for the MAC, national television, top two teams in the conference. It's a really big matchup to showcase how good the quality of basketball is in the MAC. Toledo will be without their leading scorer. Can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he was arrested on Saturday for a DUI, and he won't be playing tomorrow night. So it's. I think it'll be an entertaining game. I think it'll be a close game again. Toledo is a really talented team, but so is Ohio. If Maurice Endor gets going like he did for the Bobcats in the first matchup, then I expect Ohio to come out on top. It'll be a close game, but I do expect Ohio to prevail.
I mean, and really, I think at this point they're really just kind of playing for experience and, you know, just kind of keep rolling in the right direction because let's face it, it's going to come down to the tournament. I'd rather see Ohio lose this game to Toledo and then say if they meet in the MAC championship, they beat Toledo. Because it's hard to beat a team three times.
Especially a team as good as Toledo
right.
is.
And I mean, you play each other one time, okay, we kind of figure you out. You play again, you know more tendencies. You play a third time, it comes down to talent at that point. So, I mean, I'm rooting for Ohio in this one, but I'm just hoping that, you know, they can continue it and then win the MAC championship so they can get into the tournament.
All right, let's move on. Let's play the one-word game.
Our favorite.
Love this game. And we start off with
let's start out with the Cleveland Browns. If you haven't heard the news, they fired about half of their front office this morning. Another move of stability for the very stable franchise
one of the most stable in the league.
Ian, we'll start with you. Give me one word.
Just one word, Ian. I know you have
one word for the dismissal.
Disorganization.
Good word.
It just goes to show this franchise, and I love this team to death. Don't get me wrong, and I'm always gonna love this team. This team is a disorganized mess. It's one of the laughing stocks of professional sports in this country and around the world. I mean, it's a joke. It's an absolute joke that this seems to happen every. I think, what is it like? 7 general managers since they've returned.
7 general managers and 3 head coaches in the past
3 head coaches
years.
in the last 3 years. Just not to mention the instability on the field as well as off the field. It just never seems to end, and it's not going to end anytime soon. And it's so frustrating just to see it happen all the time.
I think my word's going to be amusing. I mean, Jimmy Haslam wants to go up.
You watch yourself down there.
Hey, no, I'm not. I mean, this isn't a shot for, you know, just because I'm a Steelers fan. Because you don't want your division to be horrible. You want to have a good division so
You want to
can
have an
compete.
NFC West.
Right. So I mean, that way you're tested. But it's just amusing to me that he stands here. First, it's the head coach. They take forever hiring a head coach. He preaches patience to a city that's been wanting a team. They haven't won a championship since when, Ian? The 60s?
1964.
64. And so he wants to say patience. And then when a reporter asked him, you have one of the most disorganized, laughingstock teams in all of sports, and he dismisses that. I mean, it's just amusing that he thinks they're. I don't even know. It's Cleveland.
Yeah, I'm gonna go along with the lines of Cody and just say funny. I mean, at this point, even if I was a Browns fan, I would just have to laugh when I saw this news. I mean, it's gotta be so frustrating for Browns fans.
You have no idea.
Poor Cleveland.
We don't. All right.
Let's keep it in the NFL. Missouri defensive end Michael Sam, who's projected as a 3rd to 4th round pick, was Defensive Player of the Year in the SEC. Announced that he's gay. He'd be the first active homosexual player in the NFL. Openly homosexual player in the NFL, because I'm sure there's been some in the past. Cody, one word for Michael Sam.
Surprising, I would say. I mean, I didn't see this coming. I mean, it's almost on like what it needs to change, and this is great that it's happened. I can't wait till the point where it's just not that it becomes the norm that ESPN doesn't devote 3 or 4 days to it on SportsCenter, because I mean it's a big deal. It's just
at the same time it's not.
It shouldn't be a big deal, right? And that's so. I mean, I was surprised that he came out on his own and said, "Hey, I'm gay. This is who I am."
Yeah. My word is going to be overhyped.
There you go.
I think and political opinions aside, personal opinions aside, whatever. I just think it's a little ridiculous that as a society we get to the point now where this has to be a big deal.
Right.
I feel if the kid can play football, he should play football. I don't care what sexual orientation, color, what he does doesn't matter to me. I mean, obviously I don't want a guy that goes out, smokes crack, gets drunk all the time and, parties but if the kid can play football, let him play football, I don't think it needs to be as big of a deal as people are making it out to be. I mean, yes, it's a big story, because if this kid does get drafted, it's history making.
Right.
And if he doesn't get drafted, then what?
Then he files the discrimination lawsuit.
Exactly. So
the storylines are there, but they shouldn't be there.
They shouldn't need to be there. Right. I just think it's one big overhyped thing.
Let's just play some football.
Let's just play football.
I'm gonna say my one word is gonna be courageous. I mean, you want to think that society is getting better and better, but Cody and I were in the locker room this morning at the gym out at school, and there was these 2 old men in there, just so bigoted, so racist, and it was just really disappointing to hear people talk like that still. So I'm going to say that it's really courageous for him to do this. I hope that he goes to a team. Right now, he's like a mid-round pick.
3rd or 4th
round pick, but he was the co-defensive player of the year in the SEC. I mean, that's a guy I want on my team there. Whether he's gay or not, if he can play football, I want him on my team. Mm-hmm. Let's move on to the other overhyped media circus of the week. The Marcus Smart incident goes to block a dunk in the closing seconds of the Oklahoma-Texas Tech game. Texas Tech going in for the clinching dunk. He tries to block it, ends up in the stands. He's laying there. This fan says something. Jeff Orr says something. It gets Smart's attention. He gets in his face and shoves him. Cody?
I would just say mistake on all ends. I mean, you've never put your hands on a fan at all. I mean, he's a 19, 20. He's 20.
19,
like
19. He's a sophomore.
He's a sophomore, so he's about 19 or 20. He lost his cool. I mean, he apologized. He owned up for it. But I mean, how big of a creep do you have to be to talk crap on a 19-year-old when you're, 40, 50 years old? Aren't we-
50-something years old.
Aren't we a little better than this as a society? Where, I mean, I'm all for harassing the players. Like if I'm in a student section, you chant this and that. But I mean, you're devoting your life to harassing college kids. Isn't that like stalking or something? Shouldn't that be a crime?
I think I'm gonna try and say. I think the word I'm gonna use is complacency. I think this has unfortunately become just the acceptable way of things in sports now, especially in college sports. You know, people shell out this money to go watch these games, and obviously the student sections are a little different. You know, that's
A little
completely
more
different thing.
tolerable,
a little
I
more
think.
tolerable, but these older people, these adults, you know, and they just sit there and they harass these kids all the time. They just yell these comments, these inappropriate things, and obviously what Marcus Smart did was not the right way to handle it.
Right.
But what Jeff Orr did is not the right way to handle it either. You know, it's a situation that should have never happened in the first place, because we know where to draw the line with players. The line drawing with players is pretty strict. But where do we need to start drawing the line with the fans is my question.
Right, because you
Right,
wouldn't just walk down the street and call like, "Hey, you're a piece of crap."
Yeah.
I mean,
No.
so what gives you the right at
a sporting event?
Right.
I'm gonna say disappointing on all ends. Smart lost his pool, like Ian said, and that's unacceptable. But for Orr, I mean, 50-something years old, an air traffic controller, and a Texas Tech super fan just follows the team around. Teams. I mean, he sounds like a loser to me, and I don't know. There were rumors going around. It hasn't been disclosed what he said, but there's been rumors going around on Twitter that he either called him the N-word or said "go back to Africa." He denies it and says that he called him a piece of crap. But if either of those were said, I mean, you can't blame Smart at all. I mean, the testosterone going, being 19, 20 years old, and someone saying that. I have a hard time blaming Smart.
Yes.
Let's move on. The Pirates reportedly have interest in Kendry Morales. Be a starting first baseman. Would be a really expensive option for him. Ian?
Necessary. I think it's a necessary risk for them to take with the money and all of the other risks that come with Morales. You know, he's kind of getting up there in age a little bit, but they really lack a consistently solid first baseman, and Morales has proven throughout his career that he's a viable option to play that position. Does he come with a little bit more of a price tag? Yes, but it's a necessary risk, I think, for this team if they want to get back to the level of success that they had a year ago.
I'm gonna go with absurd. I'm gonna take the opposite on this one, Ian. Yes, I would love a player like that, but he comes with the price of a first-round pick, which if you're the Pirates, I don't see how you give up a first-round pick for a guy who only appeared in 31 games last year as a first baseman. He was more of a DH. I would like to have interest in him. If we'd given Burnett the qualifying offer, he declines it, we get a first-round pick. Then you're essentially getting the first-round pick back, which then you pay him a little bit of money, that's fine. But the guy turned down $14.1 million. He's going to want, what, $30-40 million for a couple-year deal? I don't know if the Pirates...
I don't see him wanting any more maybe than 16, 17.
I don't know. It's a tough situation for him to be in.
I think any number over $20 million for him is way too much. That's my thought.
Right, and there's still talk about him just playing against right-handers, and if you pay a guy $16 million a year, he has to play all the time.
He's got to play.
I'm gonna say overpriced. He'd be way overpriced for them. There's a really good article up on Pirates Prospects about how the Pirates are in a good position with the first base options because, like in places like Texas where they have Mitch Moreland, he's a backup first baseman. He's going to be making $3 million. They're not going to pay a backup first baseman $3 million. So the trade value will fall on him, and hopefully this falls into place. But giving that much money to Morales and losing the first round pick isn't worth it to me. Let's move on to our final. Let's keep it in baseball.
Let's-
Let's move on to our final
Let's
one-word
liven
topic.
up the conversation a bit. We've been very sad today.
Marcia Tanaka, the Japanese pitcher that's going to the Yankees.
Have fun with them.
7 years, $155 million. Well, what's he do with that money? Well, he pays about $200,000 to have a private jet to fly him to New York for him, his wife, one friend, and a dog. Ian?
Ridiculous. Really, it's funny to me. I mean, obviously, he seemed to deem it necessary, but I just think it's hysterical that he's doling out all that money for 3 people and a dog to fly on a jet. I mean, obviously he needs to get over here, but I don't think that's quite the cost you need to pay for it. But if you got the money, by all means, go ahead.
I'm gonna say Yankee-like.
This
This is the most Yankee-like story I have ever heard. I mean, if you're making $155 million, I guess why not? But only with the Yankees. Like this, like the Pirates, like Andrew McCutchen would not spend $200,000 to fly somewhere just so he can have the plane by himself. This is a Yankees thing.
Yeah, I'm going to just say absurd. I mean, Cody summed it up perfectly right there. It's very Yankee-like to spend $200,000 just to get here.
Goodness.
And not even if he'd have brought like his family and like maybe 20, 30 people.
Do you want to know
or
the
something.
greatest irony of what you said? Today in his press conference where he was revealed to the media and everything, General Manager Brian Cashman called the deal Steinbrenner big.
See, there it is.
Yeah.
That sums it up. Let's move
All
on.
right, let's talk about our final topic, Olympic hockey.
Olympic
Woo!
hockey.
I mean, it's been a rough couple days without the hockey, but I'm so ready for it to come back. This is going to be, I mean, this is one of the best tournaments in all of sports. I mean, it's going to be awesome.
It's gonna be great.
All right, so I got an idea for this.
Okay,
For this segment
let's hear
here. Ian, BJ, and then myself. Give me your gold, silver, and bronze medalist.
it. And then I want to hear who you think the dark horse is.
There it is. That's
All right, Ian.
My gold is Canada. I think there's just too much talent.
Canada
on that roster.
on strike.
I think there's just too much talent on that roster. They're keeping a lot of the NHL pairs together. Your Crosby and Kunitz will be on a line. Taves and Sharp will be on a line
Oh.
together.
Oh,
They're keeping a lot of their NHL chemistry together on their lines. I think it's just too much talent to overcome. I have the U.S. taking silver again.
another heartbreaking loss to Canada.
I don't think it's a heartbreaking loss this time. I don't think they lose in quite the dramatic fashion that they lost 4 years ago. But I do have them taking silver, and I have the Russians taking bronze. I think playing on home ice. I think that the motivation after what happened 4 years ago, failing to get a medal, I think that's going to motivate this team. They're hungry. They want to get back on the podium. They obviously want to get back to the top. I don't think their roster is good enough to get them to that point yet, but I have them taking bronze. My dark horse is going to be Finland for one reason.
My dark horse.
That's everybody's dark horse. One reason.
Olli
Tuukka
Mata.
Rask.
Ah.
Enough said.
All right.
BJ?
My gold medal team.
You're trying to say USA.
You
I
wanna say
do.
USA.
No.
I want to say USA. You know,
Go on a
screw it.
limb.
I'll say it. Gold medal USA. I just think that they're talented in the net. I mean, you think about you have Ryan Miller who carried them to a silver medal last time. I mean, I know he hasn't been as great lately, but I'm really looking for Jonathan Quick to carry them this time. I mean, you have Dan Bowles. You got a good coach. Silver, I'm going to say they get their revenge on Canada. I'm going to say that it's going to be the U.S. and Canada again, and the U.S. wins. I mean, just looking at Canada's roster, it's so ridiculous to even think that that's all on one team. Bronze, I'm gonna say Russia. Like you said, I mean, so much pressure on them to even. I mean, so much pressure on them to win gold. So I mean, this will be a disappointment, but I mean, it won't be as bad as last
It'll be
time.
a vast improvement
It
from
won't be as
Vancouver.
bad as last time when they didn't medal. My dark horse, it's Finland. Ian Stolman. I mean, they just, like you said, Tuukka Rask. I mean, then you have Olli Mata. You got Jussi Jokinen. I mean, I don't know.
Yep.
I'm not impressed with Sweden. I'm not impressed with anyone
I don't
that.
I don't like Sweden.
I don't really. I mean, there's so much pressure on Zetterberg, or
Don't say his name.
not
around me.
Zetterberg.
Lundqvist.
On Lundqvist, and I don't think that he's a good enough goaltender to carry a team to a tournament.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with Ian. I think Canada wins the gold. Anytime you have Sidney Crosby,
87's pretty good, isn't he?
right. I mean, anytime you have him and he's the best player in the world, there's no debate. He makes stuff happen. I mean, your reserves are St. Louis and PK Subban, so that's how deep they are.
That's how deep that those guys are.
They're
reserves.
so deep that James Neal got left off the team.
Yeah.
I do
Which
think,
is a travesty, by the way.
right. But I mean,
That's
just
a different discussion for a different
That
time.
just shows how deep they are, though. I do like USA taking silver just because the goaltenders, they have a good defense. And a lot of people, I mean, Ian and I had this discussion. Don't sleep on the forwards. I mean,
No.
there's talent there.
I'll tell you what, 88's pretty good too himself. Don't sleep on Patrick Kane.
Patrick Kane, I mean,
he'll carry this team a lot.
I mean, Kessel's there. I mean,
Kessel's there.
Van
Van
Riemsdyk.
Riemsdyk.
There's a lot of teams. My dark horse, I mean, I don't know. I'm sorry, bronze medal. I think we're gonna agree. Russia. I mean, your first line is Malkin, Ovechkin, Semin, and then your second line is Datsuk, Kovacic, and somebody I can't think of his name, but still, that's a deadly top
for
two
five
lines.
of your top six to be those guys.
Yeah,
that's pretty
I mean,
damn impressive.
You have a solid goaltender in
Bobrovsky.
Right. He's not quite at the level he was last
No,
year, but he's
but
starting to get back there a little bit.
I mean, he's carried the Jackets to a lot of wins
Mhm.
this year. I mean, their defensemen, I think, is what the problem is. They kind of scare me with their. They're all right, but I think that's going to be their weak spot.
Mhm.
And then I think my dark horse. I mean, I don't know how much of a dark horse they're going to be, but I think Sweden. I mean, I don't want to say it because I don't like Zetterberg either. But I mean, anytime, all it takes is Lundqvist to be hot for 2-3 weeks.
Mhm.
I mean, he hasn't shown that really with the Rangers in the last couple of years. But anytime you have that ability, you always have to watch out.
I'll tell you
for
what,
that.
though, I'd rather see Lundqvist hot now than
In the
when he's
the
back.
Stanley Cup playoffs.
Exactly.
Yeah. Amen to that.
All right, have fun watching the Olympics. Thanks for watching, everyone.
Go Bucks.